All right, on this week's episode of Top 5 with Joey Cassata, we're listing our top 5 Magic the Gathering cards. What the hell is that? You'll find out.
Welcome to Top 5 with Joey Cassata. Starring Joey Cassata.
Team Jesus, my friend. Am I walking around, Park?
Co-starring Ernie Palooza. And the Doctor, Tommy Snyder.
Goddamn.
Now here's your host, Joey Cassata.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Top 5. I'm your host, Joey Cassata. We have some very special guests. Well, special in a lot of sense of the word, but today we don't have Ernie. We don't have the doctor on because they know nothing about this topic. We got two other guys that are experts on the topic of Magic the Gathering. We got our good buddy Lou. Say hello, Lou.
Hello. What's going on?
And last but not least, he goes by many names. He was originally John. Then he was the Bullet Head. Then he was the Bullet. And then he transformed, I'm not sure how, into the Booyah. Here he is, the Booyah.
Say hello.
What is the origin? So the Bullet Head, I remember the origin. How did we get to Booyah?
I think it was just easy for you to say.
Or was it
I
Ernie?
know how. I
Was it Ernie?
know how. It was Ernie.
It was Ernie.
Ernie?
We were playing poker and calling bullet, and then Ernie went to reference something to you, Joe, and he was like,
What?
you know, that other guy. I don't know what. Booyah? Something like. And
Was
you
it
brought
Ernie?
that back to the table. That was
Oh
Ernie.
my God. Ernie.
That's exactly where it started. Yes, he goes. Oh,
Ernie's not here, and he's still here.
Is that other guy coming? I said, who? He goes, you know that guy, the Booyah?
Yeah,
And you've been the Booyah
and it
ever
stuck.
since.
Right, and it
I've
stuck.
been Booyah, Boo Boo Kitty, Hey Boo.
It's a lot of names. We've called each other a lot of other names when we played our
Yeah,
card
a lot
game.
of
That's for
them,
sure.
Listen,
Listen,
Booyah is the nicest name he's ever been called at the table.
Yeah,
probably.
we'll try to keep this as clean as we can, of course. But Booyah's a good one for you. So everyone, obviously, I haven't hung out with you guys in a long time. We haven't played Magic. We were just talking off the air. Probably with me since what, 2014?
Yep.
Yeah, oh, sure.
But up
March
until
2014. I
when
remember
we-
the night.
was it March? Was it a March? Was it
It
March?
was March because I was redoing. Well, you can't see the room behind me now but I was redoing this room, and the next day I was talking to you about what had happened the night before, and you remember that.
The disaster of 2014.
Oh, well, I'll ask you, Joey, what year was your son born?
Well, he wasn't born yet. I know that. So you're right.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
why I'm
yeah.
saying.
He was born in August of 2014. Right.
That was
Then
you.
yeah. So then if Boo Kitty is turning around and saying that it was
Yeah.
that it was March, yeah, I'll take that. Absolutely.
But up until that point, now this is not just a game for us. This was a lifestyle for us. We used to
Oh my God.
I mean, not only did we play this at least a couple times a month, we would probably talk on the phone at least every day about the game, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, at some point. At some
Absolutely.
point you would talk. I mean, I remember going to when I was working in insurance and I was traveling from, customer to customer, getting on the phone with one of you guys and turn around and saying, all right, I'm thinking of this card and I'm thinking of doing this. And what do you think of this general? I mean, it was just, you know what I mean? It was like people talk baseball or people talk football or basketball. This was our thing. It was our sport.
So a lot of people probably don't even know what Magic the Gathering is. I always like to describe it, especially like people ask me now or my kids. To me, it's a cross between Dungeons and Dragons and Pokemon. So for people who know Pokemon is a trading card game. It's, but you play with the cards. They have powers and stuff like that. It's not just collecting these cards. It's an actual quasi board game, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's a great. I think that's a great example. oddly enough, Wizards now owns Dungeons and Dragons. And they did a Forgotten Realms set where you can buy instead of the standard cards that we're going to talk about. They made a whole set based on Forgotten Realms that had characters from those books because they own Dungeons and Dragons. So some of the creatures from Dungeons and Dragons they made into Magic cards. But yeah, I think that's a great explanation.
What year did Magic start? Like 93, 4, somewhere around that area, right?
Oh God, I don't even know. Yeah.
Early 90s.
Yes, I actually
yeah.
know that for a fact. Yes.
And then we started probably playing 3-4 years later, right? Maybe mid
January 98.
90.
Yeah.
Is that really when we started?
Really?
Yes, we're at your brother's house. We started playing January 98.
Crazy.
I think
you used a black deck. Your brother used I forget, but I had a blue deck. I was terrible. The cards all sucked because they weren't.
Oh, we had no idea what we were doing at first.
We had no idea what we were doing. Yeah.
you know who I think introduced us to the game indirectly. And again, I don't know. I'm assuming Danny's still friends with Chuck.
Chuck, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Chuck picked it up. Chuck was a high school teacher and picked it up from his students.
Yeah, and Chuck played with us the first few times, I believe,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he had been the. Oh, I mean, Liz was playing for a while.
Yeah, that bitch.
Wait a minute. Do you remember when she spilled half a bottle of wine all over the table with the cards?
No, all over Mike's cards.
All over Mike's cards. All over, right.
I think bitch might be the nicest thing you've ever called her.
Just so everyone knows, that's my sister-in-law.
Right.
She's a lovely woman. We love you.
She is. But what was that? Jesus. She is, but I hated her when we played Magic together. I hated her to no end because all she wanted to do was hit me and laugh.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, she was a little. She had a couple of glasses of wine halfway through the night, and she was having fun.
Yeah, great. I wasn't.
Well, but the funniest part, we were talking. I guess it was before we actually started. The value of the cards. Purchasing the cards, they had value. And they would go up in price, and people collected them and traded them and sold them. And it was very big on eBay for a while. And Mike's deck, I think at one point might have been valued seriously in the upper 3 figures, low 4 figures. I mean, it might have been somewhere between $900 and $1,200 of
sure,
playing cards, which I know if you didn't play the game or you don't do this, that sounds ridiculous. And looking back on it now, it sounds really ridiculous.
Even, I mean, back then, we're talking, so we started a couple years after it started. So we started, I believe the first set we started with was Tempest, right?
I think we caught the tail end of Ice Age.
Yes. No, not Ice Age.
Weatherlight?
No, I think Weatherlight.
Something right before Tempest. I forget what it was.
Yeah.
But the one with the slivers were introduced.
Right. But the earlier cards from Alpha and Beta and Unlimited and all that stuff were already starting to be worth money. Now, back then they were worth a little bit, but now some of those cards in those first few sets are worth thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Oh, it's like comic books.
Like comic books, right. I mean, we were just talking before we got on too, how, over the years, when we first started playing, we had to own the cards. We weren't allowed to play with a card unless we owned the card. So we were all not only buying packs and boxes and ripping hundreds of packs and spending hundreds of dollars on these stupid cards, but we were going on eBay and buying individual cards. I remember the very first tournament we ever did. I went to, I forget what was the place in the city called? Proving Ground? No, Proving Ground?
Might have been, yes, Proving Ground.
What? Was it? Wait, Neutral Ground.
Neutral Ground.
Neutral Ground.
Neutral Ground.
Ground's a restaurant out by us.
You're right.
Yeah.
Neutral Ground, and I bought my first big card, and I remember I spent $20 on it, and I was like, I can't believe I'm spending $20 on a stupid card, and it was a first edition fork.
Yes.
Well, I remember fork. Yep, I remember that.
And
great card.
Great
card.
Yeah.
And that was like one of my first big cards because that was a little bit before our time. But over the years, what happened was we realized, okay, we're all adults. Now we have families. We have other things to spend our money on. And we're not, we used to actually enter tournaments at the local shops and stuff like that. Now we were really just playing amongst ourselves. We figured, why are we wasting all this money buying these cards? Let's just make proxies, which is basically just color copies of each card. and use those inside our sleeves. You know, we have sleeves like these, and we would put a color copy inside the sleeve in front of one of the cards, and it became the best thing we ever did, really.
Well, it opened up the game to us. You know, I think besides tournaments, this gave us, you know, if you're listening and you have a regular poker game that you play in, okay, or you do fantasy football or baseball where you get together and bullshit with your friends. Sorry, chat with your friends.
No, shit's okay.
Okay, shit's okay. So you're bullshitting with your friends. This was an excuse for us to get together, and you know, we were newly married or engaged, or you know, so you got away from the wives and you hung out and you ordered pizza and you had a 6-pack, and it was an excuse for us to get together. And the cards gave us something to do and a reason to hang out. So we got to the point where why are we spending a fortune on these cards? We just want to. We got to the point where let's build the best that we can. Let's open up the world.
Right, it was,
for us.
and it wasn't fair. Like if one of us wanted to go spend more money on some cards, maybe he would have the better deck. It just wasn't. It was stupid. It was so much better once we said let's just open up everything to everybody. Now it's about okay, who has the best imagination? Who can come up with the best deck to use? And you know that goes into what is this game really about? Like most people don't even know. How do you play this game? What do you do? So the object of this game is all of the players, you know, the regular way to play is we have 20 life. And each player starts with 20 life, and you have a deck, and you're building the deck with spells and creatures and so on and so forth, and you're trying to eventually kill your opponent. That's, you know, it's as simple as that. Of course, a lot more goes into it. I still think it's the greatest game in the history of games. I think it's strategy-wise, it's almost unlimited because every card works off of another card that works off another card. So if you have a 90-card deck, a 100-card deck, whatever it is, all those 100 cards work in communication with each other. So
if you build it well.
If you build it well, right.
So
the possibilities are, you know, almost not infinite, but pretty damn close.
Yeah. Yeah, we and once we opened it up and we started playing Commander format, and the Commander format is basically there's certain cards in the game called legendary cards, and you're only supposed to have one of those per deck. So you take a legendary card and you made him your general, and you kept him on the side. You could cast him whenever you had the mana, and we'll get to mana. But the Commander format was you could only have one of each card, and your deck had to be exactly 100 cards. And that really made us think of, okay, if I can only have one Tutor or one Swords to Plowshares, and we'll get to those.
Swords, right?
I really have to think about how I want to combo this. And you try to combo it in conjunction with your general, like the guy on my shirt, Urul the Miststalker.
Oh, that's right. Or I used to hate that bastard.
Oh, yeah, well... He's on my list. We'll get to him.
That was that the one that every time you put an enchantment on him, he got more powerful?
And he was hexproof. He couldn't be targeted by anybody but me.
Please, hexproof annoyed me.
But you're so right. So there was a couple different formats. We gravitated towards this format called Commander, like the Booyah was just saying, that you had to have 100 cards exactly with this one general that basically the colors of the general. There's 5 colors in Magic. There's blue, there's black, there's red, there's green, there's white. The general had to have the colors that you used inside of your deck. So if your general was blue and black, you could only use blue and black cards in your deck, and so on and so forth. And that to me is really that's when we really started playing really, really fun, because that made it much harder, way more thinking involved. When we were playing where we could just build anything we want, we would play, you were allowed 4 cards of each in your deck. So you'd put 4 of everything in your deck. We used to have decks, 220 cards this big. They would fall over. It was just chaos all the time.
I also think the other thing, and again, if people don't understand Magic, I think you need to explain that the cards had this color assignment, one of the 5 colors, and the lands, which would generate the energy to cast the card, okay, also generated a particular color. When we were playing, with these 200 card decks, generally speaking, we only played one color.
One color, right? Why?
You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, because it was easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had
It's
all
easier.
these, I gravitated toward green, which were these bigger
I was just
creatures.
say we all gravitated toward a color.
Yeah.
Right. Bullet gravitated toward white, which was angels and knights and that sort of thing. And Joey gravitated towards black, which was death magic and skeletons, regenerating creatures. Once we went into Commander and these legendary cards, these generals had a specific color. They were usually multicolored. And because you were restricted by that and restricted to only one of each card, well, now that restriction expanded our imagination, expanded our deck building, because I wasn't restricted to green. My general could do green and black. So now it was okay. What black cards am I going to enter into the deck? How are they going to work with the green cards? I can only use one. So when you're down to being able to pick 99 cards and it's really not 99,
Right.
it's 100, less the general, less the land. You got to take the land out of that. So now you're really only picking, let's say 60, 65 cards that are playable. Well, that's where it got interesting. Well, we were playing 250 card decks green. I mean, if the card was green, I threw it in the deck. It didn't matter.
It didn't matter. You throw everything right. And again, we would just
get to it.
It was just a much more simple way to play when we
Yes.
first started playing. And don't
You're
get
right.
me wrong, it was a lot of fun. And then one day I came across this magazine, and I don't know I forget what the magazine was called. It wasn't Inquest. It was some other I think it was a Magic magazine, and they had this new format, which was originally it was a fan-based format. A fan made this up, and it was called Commander, or I think it was even called something else.
EDH.
EDH.
Elder,
right.
EDH. Elder Dragon.
No, it wasn't.
Elder Dragon Highlander or something like that.
Something like that. That's what the fan made it as.
Yes, it was
And
EDH.
I just love nice.
Sarah.
I think she'll be on your list today. I just loved. I said, "Wow, this seems like a cool." And we were not starting to get out of it a little bit, but it was starting to get a little stale. At that point.
We needed a recharge.
We needed a recharge, right? And once we came up with this and we started doing this, then we really went nuts.
Yeah. Oh, forget it. It took it to a whole new for us, because it, like you said, it was starting to get stale, and it gave us something new to consider. When you had a 250 card deck and a new card came out, so you put 2 or 3 of them in, you didn't take anything. It didn't matter. Oh, what's the difference between 250 and 253?
It doesn't matter, right?
Speaking of new sets coming out, that was we used to, especially once the internet came into play, I'd get texts from or emails or phone calls from Joey. Did you see this card? Did you see this card on the list? Go to the Magic website. Look at this card. It's coming. Oh my God! I can't wait to get my hand on this card.
I mean, we haven't played in 7 years. I still send a Booyah a text every once in a while. Holy crap, Booyah, look at this card. And I'll just find, like, I follow some Magic sites on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. They'll post some cards, and I'll be like, holy cow, look at this. Can you imagine we were using this when we were playing?
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you. My son, who's just Joey, because we haven't seen each other in so long, 17, 6'2", you wouldn't recognize him.
Crazy.
I mean, it's just to give you an idea of how long it's been.
Insane.
But he came across Magic the Gathering Arena app or whatever. And he played, and I downloaded it on the computers, and we played back and forth. Some of the cards that are created, and I get it because they have to kind of update it. What we played with then, you wouldn't even consider playing now.
Wow.
Okay. I'll give you an example. You could see Sarah Angel is behind Bullet now. 4/4 flyer, vigilance,
Bad
for 5.
picture. Yeah.
Okay.
For 4.
For 4, 2 and 2.
No, for 5.
For 5, right? 2 white and 3. Now for 2 white and 3, you could get a flying 5/5 pumpable life. I mean, it's like, guys, you've gone over the top. There's no room for something that's, and again, Sarah wasn't vanilla then. she's not a 5-star card anymore.
No way.
No.
But
Not
again,
even close.
and that kind of goes into the topic today. So the topic today, we're going to be picking, and again, I
See
don't
how
know
good I am?
how you guys, that was a nice transition. I
You're
don't know
welcome.
how you guys really went to your lists, but I picked not the most powerful cards, or I just picked
No.
cards that I love to play
Yes.
for whatever reason. And it
Yes.
could be, like Lou was just saying, the Sarah is not a great card anymore. But I remember the Booyah, that's one of his favorite cards. I know that was one of his favorite cards. So that's when I say let's pick our top 5 Magic cards. I don't mean the top 5 most powerful, because that's a list would be the top 5 most powerful cards. I don't know if any of the cards on my list would make it. Maybe one of them, but I don't know if all the others would even
Right.
be close.
No.
I picked cards based on what you said that I loved to play. That we'd be in the middle of a game and I'd draw it. I'd be like, love it. So
Yes.
glad to have it. Just
Yeah.
you know what I mean. One of the cards that I have as like an honorable mention was a card that I chose because it pissed everybody off.
Yeah, of course.
I hardly half the time it confused the hell out of the card. My card confused me, but I loved when it hit the table because everybody, oh come on, Grip, really?
I also find that I'm curious to see what our list, if we have any duplicates and stuff. We were all pretty synonymous with certain cards too. Like there were certain cards that I played, then there were certain cards that the Booyah played. There were certain cards that you played, and
Yes.
so on and so forth. You know what I mean? It wasn't, and obviously there were universal cards that we all used too, of course. But a lot of cards were specific to each one of us, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of my cards are absolutely Lou specific from
Exactly.
when I played. Yeah.
Right. All right, so I think, listen, if you don't understand Magic, you're not going to get it from our from us talking about it for 5 minutes. It's
No.
something, it took us years and years to master. It's something that I was definitely super obsessed with. I still think it's the greatest game in the world. I really do. I still love it to this day. I was looking through my old box of cards. I'll show everyone my box, which my wife decorated for me many years ago. If you guys remember this thing.
Oh yeah, the toolbox. Yep. Oh yeah.
Yes. No, but you got to show the flowers on top.
Oh yeah.
I remember the flowers on
Yeah,
top.
she
There
put
they
the
are.
flowers on.
Oh, yeah.
They're still on there. I got all the decks inside,
Yeah.
color
Nice.
coordinated. I got all my tokens on the top here.
Nice. Yep. There you go.
Everything ready to go. Yep. Again, I haven't touched them in
Still in-
nice.
Still colored, still ready to go. The different color sleeves so that you knew what was what.
We get
We're
the
gonna
call.
decorate.
We can be ready to go like that.
I-
I don't know if
It takes me
I don't know if
45
I'd
minutes to get
remember
there.
what to do, but I'd be ready to go.
Speaking of decorating, what was our favorite place to go? Every Friday night before we played.
Gary's.
Went to Gary's.
Gary's.
I got it.
Absolutely.
I wonder. So Gary's was
Gary's.
our
Who
magic
had that?
shop in Brooklyn. Where was it? Sheepshead Bay?
Oh, right
Originally,
on Nostrand.
originally Sheepshead Bay. It was
Right.
it was originally Sheepshead Bay, and then he moved to Neck Road by
Yes.
the train station. As a matter of fact, here's a little interesting kind of stupid trivia. That train station was used in Bronx Tale when
Oh, okay.
when the
Oh, I
kid
don't
goes
remember
to
that.
see his girlfriend.
Yes,
He comes off the train, goes to see the
of
girlfriend.
course.
All the guys are standing there, and he gets scared. He turns up the block from that where that scene was filmed is where Gary's was.
I'll never forget. So Gary was like this old hippie guy
Definitely.
that ran this magic shop. He had 35 cats in the store. The store smelled like piss, but we would go there every week. Gary loved us because, it was us and all little kids in the store. The little kids would be bothering him, but we would come in and spend hundreds of dollars every week.
Yeah. Oh, he loved us.
So Gary loved us. We even played a couple tournaments in there, and I still have I won a tournament at Gary's once. I got a first edition Charizard.
Yes.
You remember
Still
that?
have that?
I still have it. Never sold it. It's worth about $2,000, I think.
Wow. Nice.
Yep. First
I
edition
remember,
Charizard.
I remember
Do
that
you
game.
remember? Do you remember what came out of what phrase or moniker came out of Gary's?
Was it not Sucker? Was it Sucker?
Stickers.
Stickers.
Oh, why did he
Stickers.
call us the stickers? That's
I
right.
know.
Because
idea.
when you would try and sell him back cards, he would say, "You're trying to stick it to me."
Right.
We became the we walked in the sticker.
That,
The
oh
stickers are
my!
here.
I forgot Gary came up with that.
Mike,
Right.
Mike put that when we were all in his bridal party. Remember, we got the jerseys, and it was stickers
stickers.
across the
I
stickers
still
across
have
the
that.
front.
Stickers
That-
with a K, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, and an A.
Yeah, stickers, right?
But that was Gary.
Right, because we would always try to swindle our trades with him.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely on trades. You guys are trying to stick me. You guys are stickers. We became the stickers.
So this is the perfect example why I do this show. I don't care if one person watches it or a million people watch it. It's to I didn't remember that.
Remember
And
that,
there's
right.
no way I would have ever thought of it unless we started talking like this.
Well, that's the it's funny you say that, Joe. When you reached out, all of that stuff, stuff you haven't thought about in 10, 15 years, like, holy cow, remember this and remember. Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if you remember this, when we pulled up, me and you, I think it was me and you, Lou, we pulled up to Gary's and he's like unloading this big rack or something. he's like, here, come here, grab a hold of this. And he got stuck moving Gary's furniture into the store.
It was a wooden comic book rack where
Yes,
you would
that's what it
put
was.
the new episodes, the new issues out, sticking out of a convertible.
Yes.
We pull up.
Look, it looked like the big piece of meat in the Flintstones sticking out of the car.
Exactly.
Yes.
I go over. I said, Gary, can I give you a hand? Yeah, would you please hold on? Give me a hand here. I pick up one and he walked away. He walked away to go into the store.
God, I can't imagine he's still there through all of this and the pandemic and all that stuff. Is he still there?
Actually, I'm trying to think. The last time I went by there, maybe it was because I'm still in Brooklyn. So maybe it was
What was the name of the store?
the stand.
Stand,
Anyone that's watching this, if you live in Brooklyn, I know a lot of Brooklyn listeners.
Right.
If you're watching or listening to this, and you know of a magic/comic shop, collectible shop in Brooklyn, name the Stand. Please let us know if it's still open and send Gary our love. We got to stop by
Yes,
there.
please.
Absolutely.
Neck Road in like East 13th or East 14th.
Right.
Yeah, somewhere
Right
like
over
that,
there.
yeah.
All right. So let's stop this stuff and let's start our lists. I'm so
Go ahead.
curious to see what you guys went with. Lou, let's start with you. We'll start with your
Sure.
number 5 favorite Magic card to use.
My number 5, I'll because it wasn't my favorite card. I'll be honest with you. I put this on the list because it wasn't my favorite card to use, but I just thought it was so integral to when we played. Okay. And very simply, it was called Counterspell. Counterspell was a very simple card. It cost 2 blue. And anything somebody tried to cast, somebody tried to bring into play, completely stopped it. It just made it non-existent. And the reason that I used that, even though I rarely played it, was because it was like a bully. If somebody was playing blue, they left 2 islands untapped, 2 blue mana untapped, and it could shut down the game. And you weren't sure if somebody had it. If you asked Joey, he always had it because he had decks up his sleeve, the cheating bastard. But but the influence that one card could have on a game absolutely had to be mentioned.
The ultimate bluff. That's what it was.
Yes.
It was the bluff in poker. You would leave those mana, the islands untapped. And if you saw someone that was playing blue and he had 2 islands untapped, you were like, son of a bitch.
Yep.
You couldn't play your card, especially a powerful card, in case he had it.
Yep.
And, the chances of you having it, especially if we're playing Commander, which maybe you only had 1 counterspell or a variation, couple variations of the same card, it wasn't a good chance you had it, but we always had to respect the counterspell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always.
Good pick. Good start. Good start.
Thank you.
All right, Booyah. What do you got?
Son of a bitch stole my thunder. That was my number 5.
Shut up.
I told
Really?
Was it really?
you said we're curious to see which ones we have on our list that is similar. That was my number 5, just because. I mean, I loved it. I loved the bluff factor, but I also loved when you actually had it.
Oh God.
The ultimate. Unless your card said can't be countered, and for those listening, there are cards that specifically say can't be countered. But unless you have a card like that, that was the ultimate. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Even from across the table, because when we used to play, you couldn't attack somebody directly
Right.
across the table from you. But if you knew that a card was going to screw you later in the game, no, fuck you. Counterspell.
Oh,
Right.
with the language.
Right. No, it's okay. Language is okay. Content is something we got to look out for.
Gotcha.
So you're so right. So we used to play usually 4-player. We used to have us 3 and Mike. And, you know, the way you would situate at a table was always different, but you could never directly attack with creatures a guy across the table from you, meaning 1 player removed. You can only hit players that were directly adjacent to you, right? But you could play spells against players across the table from you. But that's so true. The worst thing that could ever happen is the guy across the table from you countering your spell, because you'd lose your mind because you were really no direct threat to that person.
Oh, that was your biggest argument when anybody did something across the table from you. I'm across the table. I can't even get to you yet. Why are you bothering me?
It's going to be 2 hours before you even see me, and you're still countering my stuff now?
Absolutely.
But Booyah, and both of you, I'm so curious because you're going to laugh at my first pick too. Why regular counterspell? Why do you go with just counterspell? Obviously, there's a million variations.
Because it was the original.
Okay.
Because it was the original. That's it. It was the first of its kind, and every spell that could counter a spell, every counter spell type card afterwards was compared to that one.
Agreed. I agree. But so my number 5, and it's so funny how we kind of started off exactly the same. My number 5, along the same lines, but I always like this one better. And because it was the real surprise factor. It's the opposite of what you guys are talking about. When you used to leave those 2 mana untapped, that was the bluff. Don't you dare play a spell because I can counter it.
Right.
My card, I would purposely tap out. And my card, I'm going to go with number 5, Force of Will.
Yep.
And that is basically essentially a free counterspell, meaning instead of using energy, mana, to cast it, you could pay 1 life and discard a blue card and play it for free.
Yes.
So it was always the one card when you were playing a blue deck or had blue in your deck where you would tap out and people would go, oh, finally he tapped out. He can't counter my spell. I'm going to play the biggest card I have while he's tapped out. I could play a Force of Will for free and people would lose their mind.
I forgot Force of Will. You're right. We would lose our minds because you thought you were safe. That's a great one. Great one.
But it's funny how we went right to the counter spells, right?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right, back to you, Grip. Number 4.
Number 4 for me, I went back to the days when we used to play 4-man, anything goes. And like I said, I focused on green. Any variation, and I did a quick research on it. Any variation of the mana elves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and specifically the ones like Elvish Mystic or Llanowar elves or Findhorn elves, because they were 1 green, and you could tap them for the
1
mana.
green. Usually for 1 green, right?
For 1 green, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm sorry. So
Right.
those specifically, those mana elves,
Yeah.
because on you it gave you such a head start.
Yeah.
First turn, play the land, tap it, play the elf. On your second turn, you were 1 ahead of everybody, potentially 3 ahead of everybody. Because if you
start
got
with 2 mana.
What's that?
Remember, we used to start with 2 mana when
And we used to
originally
start
played.
right. And
But
we used
not,
to start with
not for Commander, for regular. When we used to play regular.
Yeah.
right. But I wouldn't use I chose the mana elves because we wouldn't use the mana elves in Commander. They weren't meaty enough, and you didn't have enough cards.
Right.
There were a lot of other cards that would give you better speed. But
Right.
in the green deck, it was you would draw your hand, and if you didn't have enough land, but you had a mana elf, you didn't mulligan. You
Yeah,
didn't
you were
trade
good.
cards back.
Yeah.
You were good. You
Yeah.
were good. It gave you stuff speed, and it was like a security blanket. It was nothing fancy, nothing splashy, but it was comfort. It was there. Two elves, two land, and you were gold. You were getting where you needed to be before everybody else did. And with green, you had a lot of
Especially, yeah, green, everything used to cost a lot. And there was nothing worse. And for some reason, it always used to happen to the bullet, getting mana screwed. Am I wrong? It felt like it always happened to him. Mana, obviously, you need this energy to cast these creatures and spells. And without the energy, you could have the best cards in the world in your hand, but if you can't cast them, they're useless. So having things like mana elves or other things that produce this energy was so important. Yeah, Booyah, you were always getting screwed with mana, right?
Yeah, not in Commander so much, but definitely when we used to play early, yes.
And we used to scream at him, you don't have enough mana in that deck. He's got, I'm telling you, I have enough mana in that deck.
Oh, how many times did we count?
Yeah.
Did we at the game would end? You know what? Bullet, give me a deck. Give me the counting through 200 cards to see if he had a third.
And he did.
And
he usually did. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't shuffle.
That's
it's shuffle.
All right, Bullet. What do you got? Number 4.
Number 4 on my shirt, Ural the Miststalker. When we started playing Commander, when we first started playing Commander, if you guys remember, I thought we were doing it as a goof. I didn't realize we were serious, and I built this like crappy deck, and Joey showed up with what was Zur
the Enchanter.
Yeah, Zur the
Enchanter. Oh my god! And I remember. So once I said, "Oh, well, these guys are serious about this," and I seen Joey's got this Zur the Enchanter that takes advantage of being enchanted. I went and found Ural. So Ural, what was he? He was green, white, and red. For those listening, he could be countered, but he couldn't be targeted by anybody but me. And for every enchantment that was on him, his power and defense went up. So
what did he start as, a 4/4?
Started as a 4/4. And if I first turn, if I played a land and got a Sol Ring out and I could have him out third turn, and everybody used to freak the hell out.
Because you couldn't target him?
You couldn't do anything with him, right?
And then I would stick, all these enchantments on it, just like what was the Rampage? +2, +0.
It's over.
And give him trample. So he got +2 for the Rampage, then +2 for the enchantment. So he automatically became a 8.
He was an 8/6.
8/6 trample. It couldn't be targeted.
If you got him out early, no matter what, one of the guys next to you was dead quick.
Dead. Yeah.
If someone else got some kind of board wipe, you were okay. But one guy was dead almost immediately. And if usually if it was me next to you, it was usually me.
Yeah. Well.
No, I never targeted you,
bastard.
Not ever. No,
Oral.
Not ever.
Oh God, I used to hate Oral when he used to come out. We used to scream, "Counter him! Quit! You're not gonna." We used to yell at each other, screaming. How much yelling did go on during the games?
It was insane. It was insane. I don't understand how none of us got thrown out of our apartments.
There was more politics in that room than in Congress.
Oh, we would try to manipulate and talk about why that's the right move, why that's the wrong move. Don't do that. You have to do this. And we would try.
No matter what you did, okay, Joey would tell you it was the wrong play. It's a terrible play. Absolutely. Terrible. I play a land. I'm done. Terrible play.
Not the right move.
Not if it helped him.
Right. Well, that was the other thing.
If it helped me, I would never say that was a good move. I would just say nothing.
Right. You say nothing. They go. Or my personal favorite was, are you going to let him say that to you? Are you going to? I'd kick his ass. I'd go in there, shove Oral right in his ass.
And
you're going to let him say that?
You usually talk like that, especially later in the night if we were drinking. That would get people fired up, and we could get, especially, and because we would play obviously more than one game a night.
Right.
The transgressions that happened in one game would always carry on through the night. So if you screwed someone over in the game 1, you better look out in game 2. Yeah, exactly right. 4 hours later, someone's going to do something to you, and they're going to say, "You remember, 4 o'clock in the afternoon when you screwed me over? This is payback."
Yep.
Remember, I wanted that other half of the shrimp parmesan, and now you're gonna take Earl in the face.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
All right, Joey, what's yours?
My number 4. This is a card. I remember when we first saw this card, we were all like this, and we didn't play with it for years. It's an old card. We hated it. It was dumb. We were like, this card is crap. Why would we ever use this card?
Go ahead.
And this card is called the Icy Manipulator.
Manipulator. I knew you were going to say it. I knew it as soon as.
And if you remember, when the Ring of Geeks came out,
Yeah.
which is essentially the same card,
Same
but it
card.
had the Echo. Remember, you had to pay for it
Right.
twice. And that was the
Right.
biggest, most powerful card in Urza's Saga, maybe? What was that in? One of those, right?
Which one?
One of the,
Ring? The ring?
the Ring of Geeks. One of the
I thought it was
Urzas.
just
What was the
after
year?
the Urza.
Urza Legacy, maybe?
Maybe.
Anyway, this Ring of Geeks comes out, which essentially does the same thing. All it does is tap one permanent. So for people who are listening, when you tap a permanent, that permanent is shut off, basically. A creature can't block. He can't attack. A land can't be used. Anything tapped basically gets shut off. You're basically shutting it off. So this card shuts off one card, but only for one turn, because when you go again, all your stuff untaps. So I remember when Icy Manipulator was out, we never even looked at this card until Ring of Geeks came out. And I remember all the nerds would play with this card, and we were like, this card stinks. And I remember I put the Ring of Geeks in. I said, I got to try this stupid card one time.
Hold on, because we weren't nerds. Paying hundreds of dollars a month, spending every weekend. We were the nerds.
No, I mean the real
nerds were the
nerds.
guys who were doing all of that and knew how to play the cards.
Right,
They
the
were
real
the
nerds. Yeah, the real nerds.
You should have heard my wife's comments when I pulled out the box today and told her I was doing this podcast tonight. But so anyway, I played this Ring of Geeks and I said, it's gonna suck. It's not gonna be good. And then I realized the power of this card, where at the end of a turn, at the end of your turn, I tap this. I shut it off for a whole round. And then I untap and I get to tap another thing. This card, and then I went back and realized that Icy Manipulator was even better because you didn't have to pay for it twice. And you could just start screwing people over left and right by just shutting off one card. And that was more of my game. I never loved to attack, but I would love to open Lou up for the Booyah's attack.
Right.
So at the end of your turn, I would tap your creature, and the Booyah would go, I would untap. He couldn't attack me because I could just tap his creature, but you're now tapped. He could attack you. So it's the perfect name of the card. It's the Manipulator. It manipulates the gameplay. It was just, once I realized, that was the first card that made me start playing that way. I used to play black all the time, and it would be more chaos stuff, but the Manipulator is what caused me to start really manipulating and targeting the game for you guys to hit each other while I sit back.
Yep.
So we're up to my number 3.
Yep, you're number 3.
All right, so Bullet mentioned my number 3, and again, although this happens to be a great card, you just loved drawing it, or you loved having it on your first draw, and it was Sol Ring.
Oh yeah,
it cost 1 colorless, so any mana that you had, you could put this in, and it's called a splashable card. You can put it anywhere. Okay, it didn't matter what color. And for you tapped 1 mana and you brought this into play. You could use it immediately.
It was an artifact. Do we want to explain what an artifact was?
Well, other than it was colorless.
right. Artifacts are basically, like you said, colorless cards. Any color mana energy works for these cards. So these types of cards, much like the Icy Manipulator, could be used in any deck for any reason because they were very versatile.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sol Ring, again, it was a speed card. You, on your first turn, you played a land, you tapped it, you brought in the Sol Ring. Next turn, you had 3-4, you had 4 mana with your next land, 3 mana right away. It just the speed, and again, there was almost never a bad time to draw it, unless you were really late game and you already had 8 or 9 mana. And other than that, you were always excited to draw that because it couldn't hurt you.
Especially, it was so important in the opening hand. If you drew that, you were golden. You know, to start the game, you draw 7 cards. So those 7 cards essentially become your opening hand playing. So if you had that card in your hand, you knew immediately, like we were talking before, you would not be mana screwed almost no matter what at that point. Because chances are you'd have one or two of your regular mana plus the Sol Ring. You have 4 mana, your deck should almost no matter what be running at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, again, when we were playing, especially when we were playing 4-man and we had much bigger cards to cast, you know, when you needed 6 mana to start bringing out the heavier creatures or some of the cards that did, you know, that had more bells and tricks and whistles and stuff like that, that first turn, that early Sol Ring, like I said, you have 3 lands because otherwise you were reshuffling.
Yeah.
So you had 3 lands, you had a Sol Ring. Your opening hand had 5 mana, and you had 5 mana by your 3rd turn.
And especially with Commander, when sometimes the name of the game in Commander was to get your commander out. So to get your commander out like an Oral, second turn Oral, the game was essentially over.
Not only that, and you bring up Commander, one of the rules in Commander is if your general died, you didn't lose him completely. He went into this, what was called the command zone, and you could bring him back. You could recast him, but there was a penalty, and the penalty was 2 colorless. I don't know if you guys remember because it's been
2
so
extra
long.
mana. I did not remember that until you just said it.
It was 2 extra mana.
Wow.
The Sol Ring paid for that.
Yeah.
So you weren't stuck turning around and saying, oh, you know, later in the game, you always had that too. It was in your back pocket. It was there.
Yep.
So Sol Ring, again, nothing flashy, nothing, but you loved drawing it. It was a staple. So it made my list.
Great card. I'm sure almost all of our decks eventually, once again, it's one of those cards where you don't even realize that it's that good. But then when one of us started playing with it, and I don't even know, maybe Mike was the first one that started playing with it, but I don't remember who started playing with it first. But once you see the power of a card used against you, you go, especially a artifact, you go, oh my God, got to throw that in every deck.
And it was, I think it was either common or uncommon, because I know I had one early and I did not do this, the spending and the eBay stuff that you guys had done.
Yeah.
I had that card early and, like Squeeze Toy. You remember Squeeze Toy?
No, I don't. What was Squeeze Toy?
Remember Squee was that goblin?
Oh, Squee, yes.
Okay, and Squeeze Toy.
Okay.
You Squeeze Toy, and you tapped it to give like a creature +1/+0. It was, everybody had it, tried it, and then dumped it. It wasn't that good.
Right.
Sol Ring was another one where everybody had it, used it, and said, you can't build a deck without it now.
Yeah.
It was one of those. It was one of those common, or like I said, uncommon cards that you were going to come across easily and use it eternally. It
was so good that's one of the cards where it was so good that it was almost too good, because now every deck, every one of us built had the Sol Ring in it.
Sure.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Because if you didn't have it, you were an idiot, because it was such a great card and it was universal and versatile. You could use anytime, anywhere. You got to put that in.
Yeah.
Yep. Great pick.
Thank you.
All right, Booyah, what do you got? Number 3.
All right. What was my favorite creature type?
Dragons.
Wrong.
Whoa.
What was the first creature I built a deck around?
Was it Angels?
No.
Slivers?
Slivers.
The crystalline sliver, when that came out,
yes,
was my nirvana. Crystalline sliver,
the worst.
For those watching,
you got to explain what a sliver was. The whole concept.
The slivers are a creature type, and they're like a hive mind, like the Borg. So all you nerds out there, like me, will know what the Borg are.
We are not nerds.
They're a hive. We're geeks. How's that?
Better.
They're a hive mind. So if I play a muscle sliver, that's a green sliver. All slivers get +1/+0 to their strength. Then I play a red, I forget what it was called. It's a sliver that gives all creatures haste. So now any sliver I play has haste.
The heart sliver, I think, was the haste sliver, right?
The heart sliver, yes. And that heart sliver now has +1/+0 from the muscle sliver, and the muscle sliver now has haste.
They shared powers.
Right, they share powers, and the crystalline sliver, all slivers cannot be targeted by spells or abilities. essentially made your slivers, unless somebody had a board wipe card, unstoppable.
And so basically, when he used to play the crystalline sliver, we used to start screaming, either someone better counter it immediately,
Counter it, wipe it.
or if you have any destruction cards, you better start killing his slivers before it resolves. So when a spell is cast, for people who don't know Magic, when a spell is cast, again, this is something I haven't thought about in 7 years either. The stack started to form. How many arguments do we argue about the stack?
Well, and if you realize you saw yourself, you did this, the stack. For some reason at the table, the stack always started over our heads. The stack always started here.
All right, I play this. Why? And why are you starting up here?
For some reason, right? Stack always started up here. But the stack was the basic rule was whatever was cast first was
first in, last out.
Would resolve last, right?
Would resolve last. So it was first in and last out. So when you talked about the stack, it was he would cast the sliver, okay, then you wanted to cast the counterspell. Right, up here. The counterspell on top of it so that the counterspell happens to the sliver.
Right.
And it's just the arguments over
how
what
the
takes
stack
priority.
worked. Oh, it was unbelievable.
God.
But again, that's some of the greatest stuff, the arguments and how all of that's what we're not playing checkers. This is a game that there was so many twists and turns of this game that your brain would be hurting my brain was hurting looking at the cards today. Like, how the hell did I build these decks? I don't even remember the hours that I used to put in building decks. What?
Remember when they had interrupts and instants? And that was really confusing. So they changed all the instants.
Then they changed everything to instants, which were basically interrupt speed, right? Whatever.
Right.
Unbelievable. Yeah. But yeah, so when Crystalline Sliver would come out, we would start screaming, you better start doing something. Everyone would be screaming at everyone because as soon as that sliver hits and resolves, we can't do anything to all your creatures.
Yep, that was
always
a fun
insane.
one to play.
Yep.
The slivers also allowed you to really seriously create a theme deck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You weren't building a dragon deck because they were too big and humans were too boring. All of those cards worked. You know, Joey, you were talking about having the cards work together. We talked of synergy. Slivers were what's that?
That deck built itself.
It built itself. You're absolutely right.
And there was plenty of theme decks, like you said, humans and dragons and angels. But it was just in name. They would never counteract. They would never play with each other, and you would never use the abilities of one to enhance the other. Slivers were the first of that kind.
Yeah.
Somebody created stat blocks for slivers for Dungeons and Dragons, Joey, and poor Lou's just waiting for me to throw them at him.
Ooh,
absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Right, that was a good one. All right, my number 3, again, more along the lines, like I said, once I found that Icy Manipulator card, I loved to manipulate the game. I love to, especially, and this was always, people would go crazy, I love to slow the game down.
Yes, you did.
And
yes, you did.
Last thing I wanted was Grip throwing the Sol Ring out and throwing 3 big creatures on the board early. That's the opposite of what I wanted. I wanted to make the game crawl along so I can build everything that I needed to build to end the game.
Right.
And this card always was a card that no matter how big the game got, if I dropped this card, everything would slow down. And that is the Winter Orb.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I fucking hated that card.
Yeah, I built the deck to play.
Right, so the Winter
I'm
Orb
even getting aggravated now.
It was such a FU card because it would slow the game down immediately. It basically, and I would try to time it perfectly where if everyone's casting all these big spells, everyone's using all their mana, 7, 8 mana, everything's tapped. I would play the Winter Orb, which meant you could only untap 1 mana a turn, which essentially meant you could not cast spells almost at all anymore. It would take you 4 or 5 turns before you can cast 1 spell, and then you'd be shut down again for another 4 or 5 turns.
You motherfucker, you'd always wait until all of us were tapped out before you play that.
Well, that was the point of it.
Oh, everybody tapped out. Okay, it went to roll. Son of a bitch.
Right. And it was the other thing, and it wasn't expensive. It left you with your mana.
And if you remember correctly, the synergy, like you were talking before, which is what I loved most about Magic, building synergy around cards. I used to use the Ice Manipulator to shut my own Winter Orb off
right
before I went. So I would
Right.
get to untap everything, and then the Winter Orb would activate again, and you guys couldn't. And once I
Right.
got those types of combos going, I could lock up a game for hours.
You know, there's a reason that I haven't seen you in years. I now remember.
Oh God, even if I didn't win, I just love doing stuff like that. I loved it.
Yeah, but that
Yep.
was, but again, that's, you spoke about feeling that this is one of the greatest games ever made. What made it great was finding that strategy. That was not a strategy. There were people who never played that strategy that were, fast and loose and
Yep.
if you're part of the community, you talk about aggro decks and things along those lines where it's completely you could have approached this anyway, any of a million different ways, and finding that, and you felt a real sense of accomplishment when you found that combination that worked, that did what you wanted, and you found it. It's like, in your case, I can shut this game down completely now.
Right.
It's nothing happens that I don't want to happen.
And there were always times where a certain one of us, if he played oral or if I did something like this, the game would immediately turn 3 against 1.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So if I did something like this, if I had the Winter Orb out, it would immediately, all eyes would go to me and everyone would go to me. If he brings oral out with an enchantment on, everyone's going towards him. So there was always like these big shifts in power in the game, which would cause everyone to focus on one guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which
Oh,
again,
yeah.
I loved even more about the game. Every turn, one little change in the game, one card being played changes everything everyone does for the next 2 hours.
Yep.
Yeah. And 2 hours is not an exaggeration.
Yeah, yeah. Some games would be 3-4 hours sometimes.
Some
Yeah.
games went more than that.
Yeah.
Some games it would come down to 2 guys, and Joey, how many times have we come down to a white versus black battle, and we for 2 hours, and everybody be like, "Will you finish this fucking
Yeah.
game?"
Yeah. Somebody
Yeah.
concede.
Yep. Because the other 2 idiots would just be sitting there waiting for us to finish, right?
Oh, that's when we would start taking the tops of your decks. Look at what's coming
Yes.
up.
Yeah.
All right.
We will-
Yeah, it's over. He can't win.
Yeah.
I just looked at his next 20 turns.
Yeah, right.
Oh, this game's gonna go on another 4 hours. God damn.
Yeah, right.
All right, back to you, Lou. Number 2.
Okay, so where number 2, I chose Teferi, Mage of Zalfir. Because Teferi was
Blue, right?
Teferi was blue.
Hated
but
that
Tef-
fucking. Hated
I
him.
loved that deck.
Tell me what Teferi did again.
Teferi made all of my creatures have flash, and you couldn't cast anything except as a sorcery. So I could cast my cards almost at any time I wanted to, and you could only do stuff on your turn. So counterspell was
Torture.
done.
Yes, he shut.
Okay, it was one of these control cards that
What was Flash?
Flash let
Instant.
you cast a creature as instant speed.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
right. Instant speed.
Okay.
Right.
So what? But the reason I chose Teferi, besides the fact that I loved playing that deck, that was really, I think, the first, and it was my second or third commander deck. But that's when I really sat down and said, how am I going to build this deck that works on this general strengths? That's when I really started a better brand of deck building. Okay, finding cards that would accentuate his ability, or his ability accentuate that card. So that deck had card drawing that couldn't be countered.
Yep.
And creatures that could come in, something that had an ability when it came in and was a little bit bigger because I could do it on your turn and then untap.
Of course.
Okay.
Playing
It
stuff
changed the way I played the game.
as instance made all the difference in the world, because now people, if you're playing stuff on your turn, I can prep for it. I have a whole turn now. You give me a turn to prep for something, chances are I can figure something out.
Right.
Playing stuff as instants on the end of my turn right before you go, and then you're able to use it, all the difference in the world. Now it's a surprise. You can't, it's like, it's almost like seeing NFL in an NFL game. If I see the play coming, I could build my defense and call the right defensive play to counteract it. But if I don't know what play you're going to call, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. So I chose Teferi as number 2 because it changed the way I looked at the game.
Yeah.
As a deck builder, changed it completely. And it was one of the few decks I had that when I, what are you playing? And I turned around and said, everybody would go, oh,
yeah. Again,
I don't want to be bothered with this. And there's a certain pride in that.
It's one of those cards where, like Oral 2, like the Manipulator, the Orb, when you play that card, zoop, all eyes go to you because that card is affecting the whole table, every player at the table.
Yeah, and what was fortunate about it is that because it slowed you down, I was able to you couldn't counter it, and if you were going to do something on your turn to it, I was untapped. Everything I was doing was on somebody else's turn.
Yep.
It was at the end of your turn so that I was prepared for anything you came back. It was a different type of deck building.
It's the name of the game. You're speeding yourself up and slowing everyone else down.
Yeah, so
that's it.
Just because of how it changed the way I looked at the game, that's why I chose Teferi.
Yeah, great. Hated that card. Jesus Christ.
Love that card.
Again, another card. No idea what it did until you said it. Now I remember it like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Booyah, what do you got? Number 2.
All right, so Lou mentioned something just now that his deck had card drawing. So, listen, you can have all the best cards in the world. If you can't get to them, you're not doing anything. And if, like you said before, when you get mana screwed, so how do you get to your cards and not make yourself a target? How do you put a card out there that lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, but yet it's such an innocuous card that nobody really gives a shit and is going to try and get rid of it?
Yeah.
Sensei's Divining Top.
Absolutely.
When we didn't play with that card came out when we were playing Commander.
Yes.
For 1 mana, I forget, what was it? Tap 1 and look at the top 3 cards of your library.
And put them back in any order.
In any order. I mean, and it was one of those things where...
Artifact, right?
Yeah, it was an artifact. It was one of those things where you would look at it and say, I know that's a bad card for Bullet to have out, but I got to save this disenchant for Mike's Gauntlet of Might. I can't waste a disenchant on Sensei.
Yep.
But wait a minute. Didn't Sensei also have the ability
Yes, I could cast 0 and swap it?
And you could swap it. So even if you did get to that point where you went to disenchant it, I could take it off the table in a response and put it on the top of my deck.
Oh, put it on the top. That's
right.
Put it on the top of your deck.
The card.
And unless somebody could force you to put a card on the bottom of your deck.
Or you needed 2 cards to do it because... Right,
because of the stack.
Right,
the stack.
The stack. You needed 2
I
cards.
I put Sensei here. This goes here, and that goes there.
Right.
Because Sensei, you had to tap to put it on the top, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You could look for free.
Look for free.
So I would, again, that's why people never got rid of it. If I would disenchant it, you would tap it, put it on the top of your deck, but you would need another disenchant or something else on top of it. And how many times did that happen?
Right.
Someone would play the disenchant. You would tap it to put it on top, and people would start screaming, "Quick! Someone play the second disenchant. Who's got it?
Who's got something?"
And no one ever had it.
And that card because you could look at those top 3 and say, oh, well, this is a good card, but I don't need it right now. So let me just leave it there, and I'll just keep. Now I need it. Okay, now I'm going to grab it.
It's one of those cards where you don't realize, it doesn't sound that important, but you don't realize the power of it until you play with it and realize, holy cow, I'm looking at 3 cards where everyone else is just drawing randomly. So powerful. And you obviously what 2 of them are, but then that 3rd one is there. You could put them back in any order. I mean, it was just, I don't need a land right now. I'm going to put this land back here. I don't need that.
And you could sit there. It was like having that land in your back pocket or that card in your back pocket, because when you needed to find it, well, you knew it was there. You didn't have to wait. Great call. Great choice.
Good one. All right, I got one. Another. So again, I'm picking a lot of universal cards that I can use in almost any deck. This card, staple in every one of my decks. I'm almost positive it's in every deck that I've ever built. Everyone hates this card when it comes out. It hits the table. Everyone goes, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" And that's the card that I love to play. Love to play cards that people do that. 2 words: Nevin Ral's Disc.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Great card.
Again, it's one of those reset cards where it's the threat of the card is almost more powerful than the card itself.
It wiped everything but lands, right?
Everything but lands. It would destroy everything on the board except your mana, your lands. So, and you had 1 turn to get rid of it because it would come into play tapped.
And you had to tap it to activate it.
And you had to tap it to activate it. So if no one got rid of it that first turn, it would untap and it would just sit there. And it would basically be telling everyone, don't come towards me, because if you come towards me with anything, I'm going to get rid of everything. So it was the perfect card to just sit back. And it was almost like a big giant force field around you. Not to confuse it with the actual card force field.
Oh,
but
there's another one.
The disc would sit there, and the smartest move, which not everyone always did, the smartest move was to force someone to get activated as quickly as possible.
And every time I would say that, you'd be like, "No, you're crazy." And I said it every time. You got make him use it. You got to make him use it. Absolutely.
Sitting there, it's so powerful because I'm just building up my cards. You guys are just going at each other. No one can essentially play anything because they know the second I activate it, it's going to be gone.
And I will tell you, the especially early on when we had first started playing, before we had started even playing Commander, it was so much more powerful because indestructibility was unknown. The ability of, Joey mentioned, it destroyed everything. Destroy is actually a term in the game.
There was destroy. I'm going off on her phone. Let me go turn it off because I don't know where she is.
There was destroy, and then there was exile, like removing it completely, removing it from the game. If you had something that was indestructible, destroy didn't work on it.
Matter, right? So the disc would not work on something that was indestructible.
Right. So, but when we first started playing, the cards like the disc, there was no indestructible.
Right.
It cleaned out everything. But you're absolutely right. And I would argue, like, you got to destroy. I'm not getting rid of my stuff. No.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we'll restart. We'll go after him again.
Right. There'll be a 20-minute conversation where you have to force them to use it. And everyone would be like, well, I'm not wasting my cards to get rid of it. You waste your cards to get rid of it. And you say, screw you. I'm not wasting my cards to get rid of it either. And then you two would fight and you attack each other. And I would sit back.
And you would say, yes, of course. You know exactly which two you're talking about, because I could never agree.
I got to be honest. If I was across the table from Joey, I actually liked Nevin Ral's disc.
Of course.
I liked it sitting there.
Again,
I don't care.
Those are the cards that I like, those mass manipulation cards.
Right.
That's the stuff. A one-time card that does one thing, it's limited. These mass cards that can control 2, 3, 4, 5 turns of a game, to me, is what makes the game so great.
Yeah.
All right. We're up to our number 1. Let me recap what you got so far. All right, Grip. We got Counterspell at number 5. We got 4 Mana Elves, any kind of Mana Elves.
Yeah.
3, the Sol Ring. So obviously Grip is concentrating on mana here, which is smart. Number 2, Teferi, right? That's
yes.
Yep.
Teferi, which is one of his generals. And your number 1 Magic card. What do you got?
My number 1. Well, before I do my number 1, there's a couple of cards that I have to mention.
We'll do honorable mentions after.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah, I'll do it.
All right. Then it has to be my favorite creature of all. Loved drawing it. And we stopped playing it when we started playing Commander because it didn't fit well in Commander. But when I played green.
Wait, hold on. Don't tell us yet. You know who he's talking about?
I know exactly who he's talking about.
I don't know if I know. It's a green guy?
As soon as I say it, you'll know who it is. You'll remember the card.
Does he start with an M?
Yes, he does.
Okay, go ahead.
Multani the Marrow Sorcerer.
Of course.
You got to.
Right, but Multani, yep.
creatures had a power and toughness. Okay, that was usually stated on the card. Multani had a power and toughness of equal to the number of cards all players are holding in their hands,
which is
now.
insane.
Well, originally Magic was designed, and tournament is designed to play one-on-one. And it's a pretty expensive creature, costs 6. So by the time you would get it out, maybe he'd be a 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, because I have 2 cards, you have 3 cards.
Right.
But when we played 4-man,
forget it.
And we played all of these big creatures, he would come out and he'd be 21-21,
immediately
18-18 as he hit the table.
And you could not target him either, right?
And you could, right. And then the other thing is he could not be the target from anybody. But you really didn't need that. You know, one of the most fun when we played with Tom and all of those guys, we had done a couple of tournaments there. Yeah. I had splashed a little bit of red into my green so I could play Pandemonium, which was a card that whenever a creature comes into play under your control, it does damage equal to its power to target creature. So if the Pandemonium was out, Multani would come in as a 22-22, kill the guy to one side of me, and then attack for 17 the other direction. Yeah. He was insane, and that was one of those cards when he hit the table, everybody was just like, "Go that way!"
Well, he would immediately kill you with one hit. If you can't block him, you're dead. You're dead in one turn. You're dead.
Yeah. It was insane. I thought he was just so much fun to play again. All of these were cards where, did you like playing them? Did you like when you found them in your hand? When you drew Multani, you were just this is great.
Deadly.
This is great. I can't wait. So that's why Multani was my number one. He was my go-to. I loved him.
Yeah.
Loved that card.
And again, when I think of Multani, I think of you. That's That's why it's a perfect pick. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Booyah. Let's see what you got so far. You had number 5, Counterspell. Number 4, Oral. Number 3, the Crystalline Sliver. Number 2, Sensi Divining Top. What do you got? Number 1.
Just move over.
Oh, really?
Really?
Listen. I'm going back to when we used to play non-commander, and we used to start with 2 mana. If I had the right cards in my hand, like the right lands, especially the ones where give you extra whatever, the mana that would come out for 0 and you sack it and you get 3 mana.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you got her out first turn, a 4/4 flyer that doesn't tap to attack.
Forget it.
And we only had 20 life because that's the way we used to play. The person to your left or right, if you couldn't deal with a flyer, or as long as it wasn't Joey and I knew there wasn't a fucking terror there.
Right.
That person was dead in 5 turns. I mean,
yeah, and early on too, like you just said, deal with a flyer. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of flying. We didn't realize the power of so early in our Magic journey. We didn't realize the power of flyers.
I mean, and I kind of, Lou, you remember this? There was a PlayStation game based on Magic the Gathering, and you cast spells, you'd have mana. And if you got the Sarah Angel out, she'd be on the screen and she would just go, boom, hit the other player, come back.
And do it again, right.
Because she doesn't tap and she just
crazy.
Keep going back and forth. And unless you had something to deal with her, and like same thing in the card game, unless you had something to deal with her early, even if you pulled something on the 3rd turn, you finally pulled a Swords to Plowshares or a Terror, you've already taken 12 damage from her.
Half your life is already gone. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. That was early when we used to play early on, not Commander. I'm going back to the early days. Fucking bullet, a goddamn first turn Sarah, and if especially if it was Mike and Joey sitting next to me, Mike knew he was getting the Sarah right
just in case I had the Terror or the Banishing, like you said.
Right.
Yep.
So I know, Joey, I know what your first card is.
I mean, you guys should know my first card, but let me recap my my 5 first. So my number 5, Force of Will. Number 4, Icy Manipulator. Number 3, Winter Orb. Number 2, Nevinral's Disc. Number 1, I had to pick, the one I picked. I mean, come on.
It has to be. You picked the every card.
I mean, there's, when you play poker, there's something called a joker. There's nothing more powerful than the joker, right? Joker could be anything. Mm-hmm. My favorite card in Magic was the Demonic Tutor.
Absolutely.
Again, it's basically the Joker of Magic. I could take this card and go in my deck for 2 mana and pick any card I want and put it into my hand.
Not
And
even 2 black.
2, right, 1 and 1. 1 colorless, 1 black. And it's such a broken card because you could, especially even before Commander, like Commander was good too, but Commander, because we only had 1 of each card, the likelihood of you drawing that card is obviously not very good. So when you have stuff like Tutors in your deck, which I try to have deck manipulation as much as I could, it just made all of those cards magnified by any amount of numbers. So if I had, before we played Commander, 4 of each card in my deck, then I would put 4 Demonic Tutors, 4 Vampiric Tutors, 4 Grim Tutors, 4 Imperial Seals, 4
there was so
Cruel
many
Tutors, Diabolic Tutors. So all of these cards would essentially be any card I wanted at any time.
Right.
And I just over the years, I didn't use it as much because of Commander, but the Demonic Tutor was always my favorite because at any situation arise, I knew I had something in my deck to deal with that I could go get it.
And you didn't have to show it. Every other color had a tutor. Like white had go get any enchantment, but I had to show what it was.
Right.
And it went on top of my deck. Demonic Tutor, you didn't have to show it, and it went in your hand.
And it went in your hand, right?
Right. And that's what it was, because there were cards that let you get any. There were very few that let you get any card. Because if it said you can go get a creature and enchantment, you had to prove that you drew a creature and enchantment.
Right,
you had to show it,
of course.
But even the ones that said pull any card from your deck, it was always and put it on top of your library.
Right.
You then had to wait to draw it.
Which everyone had a turn to deal with it. Like I said before, when I know kind of what could be coming, if you give me a turn to deal with it, chances are I could probably deal with it. But if it's a surprise, like the Demonic Tutor, again, sometimes it's about that bluff and that threat more than the actual card. So if I pull the Demonic Tutor and I put something in my hand and I have my mana untapped, everyone can their imagination's running wild. Did I pull this? Did I pull that? Did I pull this? Did I pull that?
What did he go get?
Right.
That's why I said, Joey, your favorite card was the any card.
Yeah.
It was anything you wanted it to be.
Yep.
Half the time we were wrong, though. Half the time we guessed, because you didn't always get a card for the current situation. You'd get a card and think like 5 turns ahead.
Well, that's what because everyone would assume if there was a creature hurting everyone, he pulled the terror, he can obviously deal with the creature. Let's not attack him anymore. And I know you're going to think that way. So obviously I'm not going to go for the terror. I'm going to go for something that's going to set me up a couple turns later. I'll risk you calling my bluff and coming after me.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, you had to.
That's I mean, that was a staple. It became a staple in a lot of decks, especially when we started playing Commander. If I had black in my deck, I was putting a couple of tutors in there.
And then later on, we had the Planner Portal, which was a artifact tutor, basically.
Oh my
right?
God, that was great! But it had the echo, so
yeah, you had to pay.
Yeah, it was
6
expensive.
twice.
It was 6. Yeah, it was expensive,
but
it was worth it.
If you had the mana and it stayed out every turn, you had a Demonic Tutor for 6.
Yeah,
that's right.
As an instant.
Yes.
Yeah, at the end of your turn, I go and get
anything you want.
Yeah,
and you have to show it.
It was as great as that card was, I almost never played with it. It was a heavy nut.
It was heavy.
Yeah, I had gotten caught with it a couple of times and stopped playing it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or took it down. Maybe we had 4 and I went down to 2. You know, yes, if I come across it, but
again, any card to me where it takes 3 turns to build up is no good, because for me, I can deal if I build my deck correctly, I should be able to deal with whatever you do. If I have 3 turns to deal with it and I can't deal with it, then my deck stinks. Planner Portal, you would tap out for 6. Chances are you only had 6 mana at that point. You'd tap out for 6. You'd have to tap out for another 6, right?
For the echo, yes.
For the echo. And then the third turn, maybe you'd use it on your 3rd turn. So by your 3rd turn, and then you'd be tapped out by casting it too. If I can't deal with either that or whatever card you're pulling at that point, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
Great. All right, let's do a couple honorable mentions. What do you got, Grip?
So just real quick, first one I had to mention was the Rootwalla.
What was
Okay,
what, was it trample?
it was oh no, it was a nothing. It was a 2/2 lizard that if you tap two into it became a 4/4 lizard. But I choose Rootwalla because Bullet for some reason decided that he was going to give the Rootwalla a voice. I mean, I remember, we talk about how obsessed we used to get with the game.
I don't remember this.
Oh, he used to go, "Hello, this is Root." Root. It was the dumbest shit, but I remember it. And I remember, we had first started playing the game, and I think again. Oh, I'll tell you what it was. We read the card wrong. We thought it was fully pumpable. Tap two and it gets +2/+2. And we were pumping it through the roof and stuff. And of course, we were playing it completely fucking wrong.
Yeah.
But I remember, again, how certain things come back. As I'm thinking of this list, I thought, oh, Rootwalla, Bullet with the, and then I remembered when John and I, both of us had worked in the city at the time. We used to drive to the train station, not together because we went different times. He had left a note on my car. I thought I got a ticket. There was a note under my windshield. I'm like, you know what I mean? And this is before the tickets were orange. So it looked just paper. I'm like, what the guy got? I got a fucking ticket. I grabbed it. It's a note from him. Hello, this is Rootwalla. Are you fucking kidding me?
I have no recollection of this.
So I just had to. So it was just one of those that I bring up for the memory of youth. That was a memory of youth card.
When you said you were playing the card wrong, it brought me back to, I remember when we very first started playing, anything that looked like it had wings was flying. Even if it didn't say flying, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Anything
Right.
that, like
wings gotta fly.
Oh, that's of course that's
Right,
flying.
absolutely. Right. Oh, it's got wings. It flies. So yeah. So Rootwalla was definitely one of them, and I will also mention because I alluded to it before. Knowledge Pool. A Knowledge Pool. I played it with Teferi, but Knowledge Pool was a card where everybody exiled 3 cards like under Knowledge Pool, and when you went to cast a card, you would cast your card. Your card would get thrown under Knowledge Pool, and you could pick one of the cards out and play it for free.
What a pain in the ass.
Not only was it a pain in the ass, it confused us every time. Every time. Wait a minute. Which card? Can I play my card? Who put this under there? It was just fun to play. It drove everybody bananas. Yeah. So those would be my 2 honorable mentions. One for nostalgia's sake, and one for that card that, when it hit the table, everybody was like, fuck it, I don't want to play. Grip, take the game. You win.
Right. Yeah, it's just it wasn't worth the headache to try to figure out how the hell things worked from there on out.
And especially if people tried to counter. I put a counter in there. Okay, I'll play this counter because there's this counter.
When does that counter be played then? How does that work? You're right.
Because stuff was underneath. I know I put the counter in there. Who took the counter? I mean, it was nuts.
That was great.
It was nuts. So those would be my 2 honorable mentions. Just for those.
2 totally different ones, but good. I like it. All right, Booyah, what do you got?
I got 2. All right, so you remember you used to play black, Mike used to play red, and Grip used to play green, and nobody cared about Grip.
Ever.
So the ultimate fuck you card for you and Mike, especially when the 2 of you are.
Oh, I know it. Here we go.
The Paladin
and Vec. Protection red, protection black.
Yep.
Protection for red, protection for black. 2/2, little green, little blue.
Game was over.
Little white weenie card.
Yeah.
Bring him out, put an enchantment, drop an enchantment on him. Forget it. Oh, look at this, a flying enchantment. Yeah, put it on him, and that was it. And
he is the reason why I discovered Nevinral's Disc.
Yep.
Because my black deck could never do anything to him. I had nothing to do anything. I could never get rid of him. And I researched probably on the toilet, reading Inquest, reading every card I could for hours upon hours until I found something as an artifact that could destroy it.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And then my honorable mention for the worst card ever that somebody thought was the greatest card ever.
Uh-oh.
Eron the Relentless.
Oh, the worst. He was terrible.
He cost 3 red and 2 to cast. He was a 5/2 trample, and he could regenerate for 3 red. You have to keep all this mana.
Terrible.
Yeah, he was
He was the worst card.
Mike liked him so much he named his pet
He
after
named
him.
his lizard after him.
He named the lizard after him, and it was just every time. Why do you think that's Mike? That's a terrible card. Why are you playing that?
Terrible.
That's Aaron. It's a great card. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Awful
it
card.
was
Yeah.
We had
that
so many
that
laughs
two
over that
toughness. That two toughness, just you knew you had to regenerate him every freaking turn.
You know a card is bad when he came out. You had no. Not only did you have no fear, but you'd actually laugh when he would play him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yep.
All right, what do you got?
All right. So my two, much like Grip's first one, this was such. I mean, first I started first with the Drudge Skeletons, just a 1/1 regenerator for one, just an ultimate block guy. And
Yes.
then when the Sarah
Wisp,
Angel
the Left
again,
is
yep.
Dead.
So the Sarah Angel, once we discovered to discover the power of flying, that you could only block a flyer with a flyer, but a flyer could block a ground creature as well. The
Right.
Will-O-Wisp.
Wisp. Yeah.
0/1 creature. My
For
favorite
one.
all-time creature. 0/1 for one.
Regenerates
for one. The ultimate blocker. Not many people had trample except for Grip, which meant the extra power went through over the 1 damage that the Wisp could take. The Wisp could take the biggest creature in the world and just block them every time.
Well, we were talking about Multani before. 22-22 coming at you. The Wisp blocked it.
Yep.
This
And-
little, and the picture was a little dot of light.
Yep.
Okay,
It's just a little. And to me, again, more so than it would block them, it wouldn't block them
because I wouldn't bother.
Why would you bother attacking? It meant don't bother coming over here. I could suck up the damage.
all day.
Go that way.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want to do damage, go that way.
You're not
Yes.
going to make your 21/21 Multani sit there and do nothing because I have my Wisp. You're going to go the opposite direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that was the name of my game. And my other I had two other ones. So my other one was the Maze of Ith,
That was
yes.
a good card.
which again, same thing. It's just a land that you would tap and you'd tap oh wait, what would we do? Untap.
It would
Untap.
untap. It
Right,
would
'cause
untap the creature.
Which would essentially take him out of combat.
Right.
Right. That's what it was there for.
Right. And my
Right.
ultimate FU card, which
Go
I
ahead.
almost made my list, but I didn't make the list. But it wasn't even that powerful because it would wind up killing me more times than hurting anyone else. One of my favorite cards to play, Infernal Darkness.
Infernal
You guys remember that?
Darkness. Oh my god, I hated
What
that.
was
So
the-
it was,
Infernal
it was
Darkness.
basically, hold on, I have it right here. I'll show
All
you.
mana was black,
All mana is now black.
and he had to
Yes.
pay the upkeep. He had to pay.
But the upkeep was cumulative, 1 black and 1 life. So it would be 1
Yeah.
black, 1 life, 2 black, 2 life, so on and so on and so on and so on. So I could
Yes.
keep it out for as long as I was willing to pay my life.
But then you would couple that with life drain.
Right. I would
You would
try
life
to.
drain somebody. Yeah.
I would try to keep my life going. That way I could keep paying for it. Because essentially, while I had that out, if you didn't also have a black deck, which most people didn't,
We didn't. Yeah.
I was the only person that could do anything until I could not pay for this anymore.
I hated that.
And usually it at least sucked up half my life. And if I couldn't win the game, by the time I had to end the upkeep, I was usually dead shortly after.
Yeah.
But it was just always fun to play because everyone would go, ah!
Yeah. Right. Well, because now I'm sitting in a game and I can't do anything.
Right.
Yeah. You
That
can't
was
cast
worse.
anything.
That might have been worse than the Winter Orb.
Yeah.
Because at least the Winter Orb, I knew everything was tapped. All right, I can't. But when I have all that mana sitting in front of me and I can't do a goddamn thing.
No
Yeah.
color. You can't produce any color you want. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff, boys.
And that worked on the elves too, because it was all mana that was produced turned black.
Anything
You-
mana
it-
producing.
Yeah.
What did it? Hold on. Let me make sure.
Didn't it? I thought
No,
it was
all mana
was black.
producing lands
What was
produce black instead.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Maybe it was errated. Remember that?
it? Yes.
Oh my god, yeah.
Maybe it was
I
errated, but this is
I
the
remember
old.
hearing. I remember hearing about erratas that came out of your ass. I remember you turning around and said, "No, you can't do that anymore. It was errated."
Look it up.
Shit. There
Look
was
it
no
up.
Internet.
Look
We
it up.
had-
We had the
Okay.
Inquest. That's all we had was
All we
Inquest.
had was Inquest.
And if no,
remember,
I used to say now it's in the new Inquest. You don't have.
And no, nobody had a laptop that they could just carry around. They just
yeah,
had
no, nobody had. We had Inquest, and maybe at one point we had Mike on web TV.
Oh my
Remember Web
God.
TV?
Oh yeah.
Yes. And remember, we used to even
Let's date ourselves.
eventually we used to start emailing Wizards of the Coast and
Yes.
asking them the questions. Okay,
Questions.
Yep.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
email Wizards and find out.
I remember that. Yep.
And for some reason, I was always the one to email Wizards, and I would just give you guys the answers that I wanted to tell you anyway.
Right. Yeah. He'd email himself. He
Well,
had
we
an
played-
email address called Wizards of the Coast.
Remember after Samantha was born, we played at Danny's apartment for a while. They had
Yes.
the computer right in the dining room. All right, somebody get on Gatherer.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh my
Gatherer.
God, the Gatherer. Right. Yeah. Great times. We played in the storm that time. Remember, we played by candlelight.
Yes. Yes. I do
blackout?
remember.
Yeah. I mean, it was our. I mean, that's what Friday night was. That's what it was.
What are you
Infernal
looking at? The
Darkness-
Gather.
Infernal Darkness still says if a land is tapped for mana, it produces.
Where did you
black.
So
look
is
it
the
up?
land.
The Gatherer
Gatherer,
still?
yeah.
Is it still there?
Of course,
Sure.
Wizards of the Coast.
Oh my God, the Gatherer is still there.
Well, listen, Joe. Let me tell you. Like I said on Arena. Okay, some of the cards that they have that you'd be, they're insane. It's almost to the point like it's almost too easy.
Well, when I was looking through some of my decks, right towards the end of when we stopped playing, remember the Eldrazi?
Yes.
Yes.
They were so. I was looking at this. I'm like,
They
oh
were
my God, I
insane.
forgot these guys.
And Rukul, Kozilek.
oh my, they were so big and powerful.
They were
Insane.
Right.
They were like
Yeah.
they were indestructible, and if they attacked you, had to sacrifice.
Yeah, it was so.
And
Every
permanents.
one of them had these crazy abilities, but they would cost 10, 12 to cast.
Yeah.
Right, but when you were playing our version of the game,
Yeah.
when you were playing either Commander or you were playing 4-man,
It would be
you
a long.
could get to the games were going on long enough. You know, I remember just to give a perspective. Do you remember Curd Ape?
Oh my God, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
Curd Ape was a 1/1. Okay, for 1 red. But if you had a forest and a mountain in play,
plus one,
plus
two.
one, plus 2. Right, it became a 2/3.
Yeah.
It was considered a 5-star card, and we were like, "Why is that a 5-star card?" Well, because if you had a dual land, like Tega, that counted as a forest and a mountain, you put that in. You paid 1 and a first turn 2/3 creature. That now is laughed at.
And
But
again,
that was designed for 2-on-2,
Right,
60
so right.
card,
Ma-
1-on-1, 60 card deck.
most people who play Magic, still to this day, in Magic tournaments all over the world,
It's all quick.
it's 1-on-1 tournaments, one guy against one guy, 60 card deck. It's a complete different format than what we played.
Mm-hmm.
The Commander format to me was just way, way better. It
Yes.
was not
Oh,
a
yeah.
speed game. Magic, is usually a speed game, 1-on-1. Whoever can get their combo off first won
Right.
that game. And don't get me wrong, me and Mike played 1-on-1 many a night where when we were still playing for Ante, that I would win almost his whole deck. And it was fun, but 1-on-1 was never the same game as multiplayer was.
No. I mean, I remember some of the early combinations. I mean, let's take the power 9 cards.
Right.
Okay, that were all mana rush and
Yeah.
and the moxes and all of that.
Time
they
Twister,
were-
all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. But there were,
Ancestral Recall.
there was the again, and red and green was very popular at the time because you had things like Curd Ape, but you also had Channel,
Yeah.
which you were able to sacrifice for every life you sacrifice, get a mana.
Which was
Okay.
so big.
Okay, and Fireball.
Yeah. That was the game.
Okay, which
Channel
was
Fireball.
1
First
red
turn,
and
second
X,
turn.
and then however many X you.
Yeah.
So if you attacked with the Curd Ape you on your second turn, okay, and then you
Channel Fireball, game over.
you played a second land channel for 19.
But again, to
Fireball?
me, it's such a different game.
Game.
It's almost a completely different game than what we did.
Ancestral
To me,
Oh,
that's not even
yeah.
fun. That's not even a fun game.
Recall. That card is insane. 1 blue mana, you draw 3 cards.
3 cards.
That is
Right.
a good.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic
Yeah.
card.
And I remember when we started thinking about those cards. Well, everybody gets 1 for 3. It was for black. It was 1 mana gets you 3 mana. Lightning,
Demonic
demonic
Crypt?
ritual.
What the hell?
Demonic
Dark-
ritual.
Dark ritual.
Dark ritual.
Yeah,
Yes.
Dark
Dark
Ritual.
ritual. Red had lightning bolt.
Yep.
green had giant growth.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
Do you get +3 for one? And we were like,
Right.
these are good.
Yeah.
We
But
never
recall-
realized that recall.
Oh my God,
3
of course.
cards for one was insane.
Yeah.
It was insane.
I was looking through. I still have some of it put together. I had my Dream Halls deck where I would just basically get to draw my whole deck with extra turns and all that bullshit.
I
Remember
never
that?
understood how that deck worked. I still don't. You would play Dream Halls and turn around and say, "Do I have to play it out? Like, do you have to?"
Right. I had it sitting on the board that I could win, and I was like, "You guys, do I have to play it?" And Mike would always make me play it out because he never believed that I could really do it, and you never understood what was going on.
I never understood what was going on. I said, "Wait a minute! You're drawing cards. I'm supposed to be able to draw cards, right? Isn't that the one you could draw? Then I could draw. Then you could draw. Then I never understood how that fucking
Was
card
that
worked.
commander or was that regular?
No, that was a commander.
Commander. Yeah. What was my commander for that deck? I
It
don't
didn't
remember.
matter. It was just something blue. You never played
Yeah.
it.
It was. I never needed the commander.
It was,
right.
it was. He never played his game. He had to get to Dream Halls. When
Yeah.
that hit the table,
Got it.
Okay, do I got to play it?
My brain is melting trying to think of how I was making it work. I remember putting that together. Like I had Wheel of Fortune in there, all the card drawing cards, and see
Get
if
to it.
I never got it to work. And then one day when I was doing my mock pulls, I finally got it to work. I'm like, holy shit, can I do this? And then I started getting it to work, but it was boring. It was like, if I got, like you said, if I got it off, the game would be over, but it was no
Right.
fun. But
Yep.
it was fun for me because it was my brain trying to build this deck and make it work. It was,
Well, what was also interesting is that I remember when that card came out, and I don't know if it happened in Commander, and we, at that point we had the internet and there was Inquest and we were reading articles and all sorts of crazy shit. But when that card originally came out, Inquest, who were supposed to be the professionals, the people who really knew what was going on,
right.
they gave that card 1 star.
Right.
Everybody hit this card. Why did you bother making this? It's a piece
Right.
of shit. And I think it was a rare.
I think
It was. I think it was a gold card.
Yep.
It was a gold card. It was a rare. And I remember the community was just like, "You wasted a rare on this piece of garbage."
Right,
And
right.
Inquest were like, "This is a piece of garbage." And then somebody smarter than us,
Yeah.
turned around and said, "No, if you take this
And do it with
and you
this.
add a little of this,
Yeah.
let me show you what you can do." But that's what made the game great.
Yep.
That's
the
what made
nerds,
the game
not
great.
us, the nerds.
Not us. No.
No, come on.
Oh, they
Rather,
were much worse than us.
yeah, I'm reading it now. Rather than pay the mana cost for a spell, its controller may discard a card that shares a color with that card. No, and yeah, everybody looked at you like, okay, how are you doing that? Wait, I don't. Wait,
Right.
Because I would keep drawing the cards and having cards to discard to play cards for free.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, it was twisted. It was
All right,
twisted.
so here's my question: when are we playing?
I agree. Now,
Well,
I'm,
yeah, right.
now I'm
And
hyped.
now-
I don't know. I literally don't know if I would remember how, but I'm telling you, I was looking through my decks today, and even with some of the new generals I was using, I don't even remember what the fuck these guys did.
Yep.
It'll come back. I played a little arena with my son, and they give you some pre-made. They give you pre-made decks at the beginning, and you start to pick it up again.
Yeah.
You really do start to pick it up. I mean, we used to, we were always able to turn around and say, no, wait, you didn't say it's the end of your turn. Back it up.
Oh my god, of course.
Which you can't do on, you obviously can't do when you're playing online.
Of course.
But you'll get your rhythm. It's like riding a bike.
Well, let's end this, and then we will
Yes.
figure out when we're going to play. This is a great
Absolutely.
episode. This is a long one. Usually my episodes are shorter than this, but this was fun.
Yeah, but you had me. I'm talking.
No, but we haven't talked Magic in,
This
like
is
you
true.
said, almost 10 years. This was something we did for every week,
Yes.
for hours upon hours upon hours. It was a big chunk of our lives that we haven't done in a while. So it was
I
good
used to get home at 6 a.m,
Yeah.
sleep until 4, and then go see Ellen because we weren't married yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Insane.
wait, and then I'd see her Saturday night. Sunday morning, I'd get up, drive to Mike's, and we play Sunday afternoon until Sunday night.
The
Absolutely.
craziest part is, so me and Grip lived in
Except for
Brooklyn.
Grip, because Kelly wouldn't play twice in a weekend.
You guys were in Jersey after a while, obviously. And now I'm in Jersey. I live basically around the corner from the Booyah, and we haven't played since.
You know how
Yeah.
many times I've
Drive
driven
from
past your
Brooklyn.
block this
What?
summer? You know how many times I've driven past your block this summer?
Insane. It's
I was
ridiculous.
at Proving Grounds last weekend.
We went a different way.
In fairness, you hustling son of a bitch. You're always busy, Joey.
Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
I am, but I got time for Magic. We'll figure something out. All right,
Let's
so
do that.
let's
Yes.
wrap this up. Everyone, I can't imagine there's a lot of Magic fans listening or watching right now, but if you are, or if you're interested, email us at top5withjoeycassata@gmail.com. You could always obviously find Top 5 shirts on Amazon. Email us your questions if you think we're the biggest nerds in history. These two are. I'm not. Remember that?
Well, of course.
But
He's a geek, not a nerd.
thank you. I'm not sure the difference, but I agree. Listen, I don't care what anyone says. I used to get made fun of all the time. All the bands I was in used to make fun of me. I remember when I was in the Kiss tribute band, we were going to do one of the tournaments we were doing, and they were ragging on me. You're going to play a Magic tournament? What are you talking about? Like they were all hanging out with girls and stuff. I said, I got to go. I got the Magic tournament this weekend. Ah!
Yeah, well.
So I don't care. I was never that type of guy. I got 100 comic books down here. I got all my toys out. Plus, I got my drums and my Magic cards. I like a little bit of everything. But anyone, send your emails to top5withjoeycassata@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the episode. Let us know if you want these goofy bastards back on. Maybe we'll do another episode. Booyah
I'd
had
love
some
to.
good suggestions. And maybe we'll do a follow-up if we get some more games in. All right, boys, any last words?
No, Joey, this was so much fun.
Nice
Thank you
seeing
so
everybody.
much. This was so much fun.
This was good.
Awesome. We'll see you next week, guys.